Well, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing and whoever you are lucky enough to be doing it too, I'm Bushka on Blitz, back with another dose of the hot stuff, the red hot stuff. This is a long, hard look at light tanks in general, with particular attention to three things. The camo mechanic, how it works for lights, the spotting mechanic, how you should be using it in lights, and the mobility of the tank, and how superb it is pretty much across the entire range and tree of light tanks, both the Type 62 and the Luchs and the Leo, all these tanks that are light tanks, and the RU251 and the SP1C, who I will be using in this video to illustrate some points. Now, this is pretty much standard fare for me when I'm driving a light tank. I'm in a tier 10 game, so I'm not really going to be able to affect the outcome by standing there duking it out, going hull down, whatever. Everyone's going to pin me with, with high explosive. What I'm doing is I'm trying to keep an eye on targets, tanks, just move up, spot them, and then when I see an opportunity arise where someone pokes their neck out a little bit too far, I'll chop it off for them. Now, the mechanic that you've got to love about these tanks is camouflage. Your camo is exactly the same whether you're on the move or whether you are stock still, and it actually goes against the grain. You'll learn when you're driving early on in this game to sit still when you get to a particular point, because you will let your camo set and then you will be much more difficult to spot and hit. With these tanks, you want to actually keep moving at all times because your camo is always going to be at full strength, so it's much harder to hit a moving target. Now, that in mind, you can see we have moved forward and we have absolutely screwed this poor old IS-7 because he now has to turn and face us. Hoodie, my platoon mate, is getting free shots in the side with the T-44, and an E100 is pushed around him because he stuck his neck out just a little too far. And a light tank can really take advantage of people that overextend. Once your camo sets, you can move off to whatever flank you want at full pace. In the case of the RU251, that's at 79, 80 kilometers an hour, and get there and put shots in without ever being spotted. And I'm going to show you some of those relocation skills and what you should be doing to fully take advantage of these tanks, because I see a lot of people drive them like mediums, and to a degree that's correct, but you don't want to be brawling all the time in these tanks. What you want to be doing is hitting without being hit back, because your armor is so abysmal and poor. Now, I'm going to spot every single tank on the enemy team here. You'll see there's a T20 on my right here that's going to pop, hasn't seen me yet. I pull back, I'm going to come back up, and I'll get the other two that are at the bridge coming over now, and another couple at the far end, and then pull back, and I've been spotted by the guy just there, the other side of the cap. That's 7. We spotted all 7. We won the game very handily because our team came around and swept those 3 guys up near the cap and then finished off the 4 who were on the other side. We didn't do a lot of damage, but we got great spotting numbers, and that's one of the things this tank is all about. Now, here we're doing the same thing. This is black gold. We've rolled straight up, straight forward, seen a couple of tanks. And you'll note that I'm not sitting still, because even though I'm not spotted and my camo isn't ruined yet, I'm keeping moving, because if they do eventually spot me, it's much harder to hit a moving target. Now, there's a couple of tanks there. I'm pulling out. I can see I'm the only one on this flank. You don't want to be in a situation where you are without hard cover and the rest of their team suddenly flies. That RU251 there, way too aggressive. Their whole team's coming up here, so he is pushing really hard. Remember the camo. I'm going to reset my camo at the top of the map here. We're going to get hit once more, I believe, just for good measure. No, we might have made it through there. We're now camouflaged again. Important. A medium tank would then have to stop and sit still to maintain that camo. We don't. So what we're going to do here is very simple. We're going to relocate as far away from those enemy tanks as possible. So we're going to get right on the boundary line of the map, and we're going to push along unspotted because we have full camo right now. Unless we fire that gun, that camo is absolutely killing it. You can see we have come up on the flank of a tier 9 tank, and we have 3 shots across. We've got hard cover. That RU251 that pushed up on our flank very hard and was way too aggressive is now absolutely screwed, because he is between us and the rest of our team. He's pincered and he has absolutely nowhere to go. Have you seen the light bulb go off yet? You won't. There's bushes in front of me on my left. increasing my camouflage. I mean, this tank is an absolute camouflage machine. And there's that RU-251. He's in licorice all sorts because he pushed up really aggressively with no cover, and everyone knows where he is. And every single shot you fire at him now will go in. I'm leaving him alone because this Leopard PTA, another tier 9, is a much higher priority target. So we've finally been spotted again, and we've destroyed their team. This is the SP1C. Now, something to note with these tanks, it's really important now that we've got our heads around the spotting and the camouflage and the mobility. You can see just how many tanks we spot up straight away is the size. Universally, they're nearly all very, very small tanks. Even though the RU-251 looks like a pretty solid tank, it's a very, very small tank. But this thing is about the size of a tier 1 tank. Now, we're being proximity spotted here, and that's something to be very careful about, because when you're proximity spotted, there's nothing you can do about that. It's not really much you can do. You're not active spotting, you're being passively spotted. And that's why you have to be very cautious with that, because you are visual. If someone can physically see you, you are in all kinds of trouble. Now, the SP1C is one of the auto loaders, which means you have a wonderful healthy dose of alpha. You can see here we're just pumping forward and back, resetting camo every time. Look at that. Come back, reset the camo, move back, shoot, get spotted again, come back, reset the camo. It's very, very simple. It's really simple stuff, but it is super effective. You can see we're in a tier 9 game here, and we are absolutely ruining the day for these tier 8s and tier 9s down the bottom, because we keep them spotted, we keep them targeted, and then we pump out and literally just take shots of opportunity where we're not really exposing ourselves a lot. And that's a light tank on the other team, that VK2801, and he was sitting at the back sniping, being really passive. You can't be a passive player in a light tank. You're wasted, because your gun, your whole ethos of the tank has to be about putting yourself in a position where you're going to be an absolute thorn in the side of the enemy tanks, particularly heavy tanks. Now, you're going to see here we're going to do the same thing. This is the RU-251. It's a super low to the ground tank. Now, low profile is an exceptionally important part of the game. One of the reasons I think E100s and tanks like that are suffering at the moment is because so much speed and spotting ability exists on both sides of the coin for lights and mediums, and it means that it's very, very easy to find shots on flanks with tanks that have exceptionally big profiles, and the RU-251 doesn't have a very big profile at all. You can see we were spotted there, but we've spotted up a heap of tanks at the front, and then we're simply going to let camo reset like we did here, and we're going to redeploy. They're obviously going towards that left flank. There's no point being in the crowd with the rest of the heavies and the medium tanks. You want to use your mobility, your camouflage, and take advantage of the spotting you did there, where you realized where their medium tanks were, that they weren't pushing out so hard, and then you can come to the flanks and start spanking. Something to note, this tank has exceptionally good gun depression over the sides, and that's why I've turned the tank a little more on an angle, much like an E50 or an E50M, where you really want to be shooting over the sides. The PTA is the same kind of deal. Your gun depression over the sides is much better than most tanks, and it will allow you to, you can see there, I've turned side on, got the shot, and because you're such a low profile tank, it's a really easy thing to do. Low profile is the key. You can hide in small nooks and crannies, you can hide in little parts of the ground, you can fit your entire tank behind rocks like that, and once you do it, you get to shoot for free. You really don't have to worry about getting hit. And you're going to see there's an IS-6 that's going to pop on our left here. We're going to simply position ourselves behind this rock, so we're nice and safe, and then shoot back over the top of the IS-6. We'll turn the tank on its side to get the gun depression down, and there you go. So we spotted. We made a judgment call based on that spotting and took ourselves out. Mobility wise, use that 70-80 kilometers an hour top speed, and all the lights have very, very nice top speed and mobility. Maybe not 80 kilometers like you have on the RU-251, but certainly 45 to 50. And while they're driving, they've got that camo as well, so you're a lot safer than doing it in a medium tank. So we spot, we make a decision based on that spot, and then we relocate. Now this is the last little bit we're going to have a look at here. This is a full game. This is a full game on Dead Rail with Pimp Daddy in the Comet. Very, very strong platoon this. The SP1C is a very strong tank. The Comet is a very, very strong tank. You can see how small the Comet is, and the 1C is just absolutely tiny. And much like the same old doctrine, I'm spotting first. I'm telling the team I'm spotting first. I'm letting them know that I'm going to give them targets. I am spotting first for my team. Here we go. Everyone, I'm just doing a drive-by. I'll pick up a few targets there. There you go. And then we cruise on back up and we make a decision based on that. They have no TDs that we haven't seen. They've got a tortoise over there. We don't want a bar of him. It's a tier 9 game. Pimp's gone to the far right. We can see 3 tanks. There's going to be at least 4 tanks over here. Let's go and support our teammates. Pimp's doing a little bit of spotting, so is this IS-6. And you can see the mobility on this tank, and it's tiny, tiny, tiny. We pop out here in front of an IS. We quickly jink back, get out of his line of shot, and don't stop moving. Drive it like you stole it. I mean, this is what this tank is all about. The RU251 and the SP1C, once you make a decision, back yourself. They're usually too slow, and they can't get back to you. Put a couple in, and don't stop. Don't stop. There's no need. Let someone else finish him off. You're on a reload. Never leave yourself in a brawl unless you absolutely have to. And we're just moving and moving and moving. And we do get in a little trouble here because we have to help Pimp out. Pimp's got an IS-6 on him here. We come straight down, switch to heat. We want to get as many shots on this IS-6 as we possibly can and give Pimp every opportunity to survive the battle. And you can see he's going to brawl around really, really quickly, and we're going to have to stop. We've got to make this shot go in, and while we do that, we get exposed. And so we're trying to actually get that drive wheel. We have to expose ourselves, and we get the kill. That E75 absolutely tore us up. But here we go, backwards and forwards, mobility. Use hard cover. You're so quick and so mobile, if you don't panic, you can get yourself in positions like this. E75's got a huge gun. He's got much more armor than us. He's got a lot more hit points, but he's slow. And what we're going to do is really frustrate him by coming out. We're only going to hit him when he is not able to hit us. And we won't expose ourselves at any other point in time. And you'll see here the poor old 75 will track him and set him on fire. They've got their transmission at the front, a lot of the big German heavies. We're on a reload. We duck back out. Pimp's getting the hell through there. E75's on a reload. Next one's going to go in the drive wheel again. You want to get good at hitting drive wheels too. It's a huge skill to have in any tank, but especially when you're a lower tier tank hitting bigger tier tanks. Keeping them immobile really screws with them. We set him on fire again, going through that transmission and kill the poor old 75. And that's a really frustrating thing. I know, we've all been there. It's a terrible thing to have to deal with. So there you go. Spot targets. Make a call based on that spotting, and then use your camo to get the hell out of dodge and move around. And then that mobility when you're in trouble is how you get out of it. I think it's a really exceptional kind of tank, and it's a lot of fun. And it might be for a little bit more advanced users, but if you start playing it like that, you'll be great. And the reason I didn't use the Luchs and tanks like that is the lower tiers, the gameplay tends to be a little bit more sporadic and a little bit more temperamental, and especially with tanks like the Luchs, which are just overpowered high DPM machines. You don't really need to worry too much about anything else other than pressing the fire button. The higher you go, the more precise and the more interesting the gameplay is with these light tanks. And that's why I use I could have used the Type 62 Dragon, or even had a look at some other tanks, but these two particularly extol all the virtues I'm talking about: speed, mobility, and camouflage. And they have a hell of a sting in their tail when they get the opportunity. And don't forget that low-profile tanks tend to have a huge advantage in today's meta. Bigger, high-profile tanks like Jagdpanzer E100s, E100s, Mauses, they're so easy to hit for tanks that get out in flanks. Yeah, it's really tough to have multiple areas that you've got to defend yourself against, and always be angling your turret and always be angling your chassis at the same time. Whereas with these lower profile tanks like an RU251 or even an IS-4 or a T62A or an Object 140, you can find very, very small parts of the ground, and you've got strong turrets, so it's very, very easy to be safe, which isn't so easy for the big boys. So lots coming up. We got some official content from Wargaming, which is going to be pretty electrifying. I'll be pumping that out there in the next couple of weeks. We've got a couple of IS-3 Defender maps showing how to platoon that tank in particular. Some advanced tactical guides for the M46 and other tanks. And yeah, should be a lot of fun. This is a patron-sponsored post. As always, if you haven't thought about it, little as $1 a month, rock and roll team. And as always, before we head off, I want you to all know that I love you and I want you to stay safe on the battlefield.